We got to get you up. You may be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Gail Agrawal, and I am the dean of this marvelous law school. I am delighted to welcome you to the 2012 graduation ceremony for the Iowa College of Law. I'm joined today on the platform by President Sally Mason, who has the most important role of the day, the conferral of degrees, by Regent Robert Downer from the Iowa Law School class of 1963, the Honorable Donald B. Verrilli, Jr., Solicitor General of the United States, Governor Robert D. Ray, sorry, my pages are stuck here, John Keller, Associate Provost for Graduate Education and Dean of the Graduate College, and finally, and most importantly, by the extraordinary faculty of the Iowa College of Law. On behalf of the college, I extend a special welcome and sincere congratulations to the spouses and partners, parents and grandparents, children and friends of this day's graduates. I know that without your support, these newly minted lawyers would not be here today. And so I invite the class to join me in giving a hand to their biggest fans and their strongest supporters. We will begin today's commencement program with a very special presentation. In 2006, the faculty of the University of Iowa voted to begin conferring honorary degrees upon individuals who have demonstrated extraordinary and sustained achievements in research, scholarship, education, artistic creation, social activism, human rights, humanitarian outreach, and other endeavors consistent with the values of the university. Today, the College of Law is honored to recognize the extraordinary achievements of Governor Robert D. Ray. And I'm going to ask Governor Ray to please stand and come forward. Well, I tell you a little bit about him. Governor Ray is the epitome of the citizen lawyer, the ideal of our college. Throughout his distinguished career, he has provided visionary and dedicated service to the people of the state of Iowa and to the nation. After earning degrees in business and law from Drake University, Governor Ray practiced law in Des Moines, where he earned a reputation as a lawyer's lawyer, a zealous champion for his clients' causes, and an advocate with a strict moral compass and the greatest of integrity. First elected at age 40, Robert Ray served as governor of Iowa from 1969 to 1983. In that role, he advanced human rights in Iowa by convening the first Iowa Conference on the Status of Women, declaring by executive order that Iowa's state government would be open to all people, regardless of race, color, or creed, by advocating for the first legislative enactment in the United States to specifically protect the remains of Native Americans, the Iowa Burials Protection Act of 1976, and establishing the Iowa Council for Children. He facilitated the settlement of 10,000 refugees from Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand in Iowa shortly after the United States withdrew from Vietnam. And in 1979, he served as a delegate to the United Nations Conference on Refugees, which was held in Geneva. Governor Ray always appreciated and respected the role and the integrity of the University of Iowa. At the outset of his governorship, there was much public outcry about student demonstrations on campus. The governor eloquently stated his position in his inaugural address, declaring, and I quote, "I shall use every resource at my command to protect the universities from any infringement of their current freedoms, which academic communities must have if they are to fulfill their promise to mankind." Governor Ray maintained his position throughout his tenure as governor, and for that, all of us can be forever grateful. Following his tenure, Governor Ray served as interim president of Drake University and as interim mayor of the city of Des Moines. He chaired Iowa's Sesquicentennial Commission, and he helped form the Institute for Character Development at Drake. In 2010, he served as a spokesperson for Fair Courts for Us, a group that sought to educate the public about the importance of a non-political, fair, and impartial court system. Governor Ray has been the recipient of many awards, including the Christine Wilson Medal for Equality and Justice, which is given to individuals whose lives and work have demonstrated outstanding dedication and service to those values. Today, we recognize Governor Ray for his exceptional service to the state of Iowa and to the legal profession. He is the embodiment of the citizen lawyer and a role model and inspiration for today's lawyers and leaders. I'm now going to ask John Keller, Associate Provost for Graduate Education and Dean of the Graduate College, to come forward for the conferral of the degree.
President Mason, Governor Robert D. Ray is recommended to you by the Honorary Degree Selection Committee of the University of Iowa to receive the Honorary Doctor of Laws, and the Graduate College is honored to present this recommendation to you for conferral of this degree.
On recommendation of the Honorary Degree Selection Committee, I confer on Governor Robert D. Ray the Honorary Degree Doctor of Laws. Congratulations.
I turn now to the main order of the day, when I have the privilege of exercising one of the truly enjoyable prerogatives of a dean, addressing the members of the class of 2012 in the last few moments they will spend as Iowa Law School students. The late Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "The law is the calling of thinkers," and each of you has been called to the law. With some considerable effort, by you and by your teachers, you have been transformed. You arrived fuzzy-headed, first-year students, inclined to begin your responses with, "Well, I feel," that is, when you would respond at all. But you leave us today, razor-sharp lawyers who permit no lapse in logic by anyone, anywhere, ever, to go unidentified or unchallenged. So as dean, I congratulate you and your long-suffering teachers on this great achievement. And to those in the audience who shared these students' law school journey, today, my faculty, colleagues, and I formally and publicly apologize for any collateral damage you may have suffered as the law student in your midst was learning to think and maybe argue like a lawyer. Now, after all we have shared over the last 3 years, I wish I could stand here and say that you have even some small reluctance to leave us. But I worry, just a bit, that such an obvious lie, and in front of so many highly credible witnesses, might prompt a character and fitness inquiry by the bar examiners of the dean, and that just won't do. So we will let the record reflect that you were apparently much more enthusiastic about leaving us than we are about seeing you go. You have given us Laura Latham's intellect, Matthew Hulstein's service, Jason Wildfang and Emily Wisnowski's school spirit. With your departure, we lose the strong moral compass provided by Amber Fricke and Hasti Barramond, and the incomparable leadership of the ISBA co-presidents, Amy and Amy, also joint and severally known as Amy Beyer and Amy Hine. Among you are first-generation Americans, as well as some second and third-generation Hawkeyes. Some of you are the first in your family to graduate from college, and a few of you managed to acquire new family members, a spouse or a child, during your law school years. You are veterans of military service and newly committed to the JAG Corps. And one of you, congratulations, Dr. Adi Pulakal, is earning both his JD and his MD degree today. In summary, yep, that wasn't a mistake. Each and every one of you is a superlative, whether you can lay claim to one of those somewhat questionable and decidedly unofficial class superlatives or not. Yet, with all this distinction, the class of 2012, en masse, completely ignored the wise counsel of the learned Justice Holmes to law students that they should shun delights and live laborious days of study. Bake sales and chili cook-offs, Mr. Iowa Law, Law Palooza, class trips, bar crawls, law proms, Halloween parties, tailgates and football games, and an extended celebration to mark 100 days before the bar exam, which is coming up shortly. Suffice it to say, you also excelled in finding distractions to take you away from your legal studies. In your more serious moments, you mastered Pearson versus Post, Paul's Graph and Pennoyer. You hosted learned jurists, distinguished scholars, and state leaders. You discussed and debated the most pressing issues of the day, and you always did it with civility. You fully embraced the public service obligations of this learned profession, spending your spring breaks doing pro bono legal service in Austin, in Chicago, in New Orleans, and South Dakota. And here at home, providing legal services to indigent clients who would otherwise not have legal representation. In total, this class provided more than 9,400 hours of pro bono and community service, beating the very distinguished class of 2011 by nearly 1,000 hours. That is quite an accomplishment. You are an extraordinary group. I know Dean Carolyn Jones was honored to welcome you as 1Ls, and along with the entire faculty, we feel very fortunate to have spent your law school years with you. But now, it's time for me to relinquish the podium to one of your own. So I'm going to invite Van Everett, elected Speaker of the Class of 2012, to the podium to address us.
Thank you very much, Dean Agarwal. When I woke up this morning, I felt different. I felt an emotion that I didn't quite recognize. I knew I'd experienced it before, but I couldn't quite put my finger on exactly what it was. I felt like I should be singing or dancing or some combination of the two. And then suddenly I realized what it was. It was joy. Pure, unencumbered joy. Not the kind of qualified joy that we've all become used to settling for while we're here in law school. Not the kind of joy where you have to check your watch and say, okay, I can afford to be happy for the next 2 hours. Then it'll be time to study for the next final. No, this was pure, unlimited elation. It took me so long to recognize this emotion because it had been at least 3 years since I last experienced it. For all the friends and family that are here today, your graduates can confirm with you later that that joke's funny because it's mostly true. Additionally, to all the friends and family that are here with us to celebrate this joyous occasion, I would just like to say that if you don't like my speech, feel free to direct any complaints or criticisms to the graduates you're here to support. They're the ones that voted me up here, so they're the ones you should hold responsible for the grave mistake they've made. Now, I'll be honest with all of you, I still don't truly understand the purpose of this speech. I don't really know what wisdom or sage advice I can offer to all of you when I'm in the same position as all of you. It's not as though I have any kind of real-world experience that would qualify me to offer any of you any advice. So with that in mind, I have a very modest goal for this speech, one I'll return to in a moment. I want to talk about the idea of success and what it means to be successful. It seems like a pretty relevant topic since it's something we'll all be striving for in our upcoming careers. As I was preparing for this speech and pondering what I was going to say about the concept of success, I started to think about what I consider to be my greatest success here at law school, or my proudest achievement. I thought immediately of my role on our intramural flag football team, the Hung Jurors. The team made it to the championship game of the Law Bowl all 3 years we were here, bringing home a championship in our second year. To quote widely respected football mind, Marshawn Lynch, our play on the field could only be described as beast mode. While I am very proud of our team's achievements, I have to say that they aren't my proudest moments in law school. Next, I thought of my role on some slightly more academic teams that I had the privilege of being a part of during my time here. I was very blessed to be on 3 different advocacy teams, all of which finished in the top 8 in the nation in their respective competitions. Those 3 top 8 finishes were the highest finishes our law school's ever had for each of those 3 individual tournaments. Now, of course, the most important word I've mentioned in discussing these particular accomplishments is team. All 3 national runs were the results of team efforts through and through, and I'd be remiss at this point if I didn't recognize my comrades at arms that carried my dead weight through each of these 3 tournaments. In our second year, I was on a trial advocacy team that finished second in the nation at the AAJ competition. We were coached by 2 Cedar Rapids attorneys named Mark Zeiger and Megan Dimmitt. My teammates were John Landy and Megan Corbin, both of whom graduated last year. And last but most certainly not least, Tyler Buller. In our third year, Tyler and I teamed up again to finish in a 4-way tie for 5th in the nation at the National Moot Court competition. Professor Gail Brashears-Krug and former Iowa Supreme Court Justice David Baker coached us, and we received invaluable logistical and moral support from another student, Kevin O'Neill. Finally, I was on the trademark moot court team that finished 3rd in the nation at the Saul Lefkowitz trademark competition. We were coached by Professor Christina Bohannon. My teammates were Alex Christian, Amy Hine, and Brian Kearns, and perhaps our most important team member who offered her advice, expertise, moral support, friendship, and the most inspiring rendition of the song The Final Countdown that I've ever heard, Catherine Ross. I feel very blessed to have been on each and every one of these teams and to have worked with each and every one of my coaches and teammates. And I'm very proud of the success that each and every one of these teams experienced as a result of our hard work. But none of them is my proudest moment in law school. My proudest moment happened in the second semester of our first year. Unfortunately, it resulted from a tragic event. My good friend, Alex Christian, lost her aunt, a relative she was very close with. I remember distinctly when Alex told me about it and told me that she was going to be gone for the next week, at least half a week, for the funeral. She was obviously very upset and stressed as she was telling me this. And without really thinking about it, I offered to go back to Chicago with her for the funeral. I vividly remembered the look in her eyes as I said this. They lit up, and for the briefest of moments, I could tell that the stress of the situation had left her. She told me that she would love for me to come, but repeatedly told me that I shouldn't feel obligated to, that she'd never ask me to miss a week of class or make up a week's worth of reading and lectures. But I could tell that she would really appreciate it if I came. Through a series of uninteresting events over that weekend, Alex ended up leaving at the last minute without me. We were texting each other as she got back home to Chicago the next day. And I told her that if she still wanted me to come, I could easily get a ride down to the train station in Mount Pleasant, an hour south of here, and take a train to Chicago the next day. Again, she didn't ask me to come, but told me that if I wanted to come, she would really appreciate it. Before texting her back, I briefly remember thinking to myself that maybe I shouldn't go, that it would be much more convenient for me to not miss an entire week of class and not have to get a train ticket or a ride to the train station, not have to make up the next week's worth of readings. I came very close to giving into that fleeting thought and staying in Iowa City, but just as suddenly, I talked myself out of it. I told myself that some things are just more important than school or grades, and that this was one of those things. The next morning, I had one of my roommates drive me to the train station, and I took the first train to Chicago. While I was in Chicago, I honestly didn't do all that much. In the days leading up to the funeral and the wake, Alex and I mostly just hung out, went to coffee shops, and tried unsuccessfully to do all the reading we were missing. I met all her friends and family from back home, and during the wake, I was little more than a glorified thumb twiddler. I'm making polite conversation with the family and friends that were there, most of whom didn't really understand what I was doing there. But at the end of the week, Alex looked me right in the eyes and told me that it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for her, and that she'd never forget it. I haven't been prouder of myself since that moment. It was by far my proudest and most successful moment in my 3 years here at Iowa, and one of the proudest and most successful moments of my life. For the first time in a great while, I felt like I had really made a difference, like I had accomplished something real and lasting that grades or awards or jobs or promotions or money simply couldn't measure up to. Which is not to say that all those things I just listed aren't worth aspiring to or achieving. They certainly are. But in my experience, pride over that type of tangible success fades as the years go by. The thrill of winning that big case or getting that great job will subside in time, just as my thrill of succeeding in those academic competitions has already begun to subside. But the pride you feel in yourself after you really make a difference in someone's life lasts forever. Even now, when I think about that moment when Alex looked me in the eyes, it feels like it just happened yesterday. And the thing is, I know that all of you sitting before me know exactly what I'm talking about. If any of you had to trade places with me right now, I know that each and every one of you could tell a similar story to the one that I've just told. We've been in school in rather close quarters for 3 years now, and during that time I've seen, heard about, and been the recipient of countless acts of kindness just like the one I've described. As far as I'm concerned, all of you sitting before me now are as successful as I am in the most important way you can be. Unfortunately, in our society, this type of success is frequently overshadowed by the more tangible kind of success, such as making money or getting promotions. The pressure to strive in the workplace is tremendous, just as it was to get good grades here at law school. And under that pressure, sometimes all else is forgotten. And getting back to the modest goal for this speech that I mentioned earlier, I just hope that somewhere down the road, if you're struggling to achieve the more tangible form of success, if you're having a hard time finding a job or getting a raise or making partner at a firm, I hope you'll remember these words and remember the lasting success that you've already achieved and will continue to achieve for the rest of your careers and lives. That you'll remember the difference you've made in people's lives and the everlasting pride that comes with that kind of success. If just one of you remembers and finds comforts in these words somewhere down the road, I'll feel like I've accomplished my modest goal for this speech. I want to thank you all so much for being such great friends to me during our time here at Iowa. While these last 3 years have certainly been stressful at times, I really truly enjoyed my time here, and it's thanks to all of you. As we go our separate ways, I hope you all keep in touch. I wish you nothing but the best in all your future endeavors, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Van, and let me say, there was no mistake made in that vote. Today's commencement address will be given by the Honorable Solicitor General of the United States, Donald B. Verrilli, Jr. General Verrilli received a Bachelor of Arts cum laude from Yale University and a Juris Doctor from the Columbia Law School, where he served as Editor-in-Chief of the Columbia Law Review. After graduation, he clerked for the late Judge J. Scaly Wright on the United States Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. During October term 1984, General Verrilli was a judicial law clerk to the late Supreme Court Justice William J. Brennan, Jr. I was down the hall in the chambers of the then Junior Justice, the Honorable Sandra Day O'Connor. General Verrilli went on to a distinguished career with the law firm of Jenner & Block and as an Associate United States Deputy Attorney General. On June 9, 2011, he was sworn into the post of Solicitor General of the United States. Little did I know, back in OT 84, that more years later than I want to count, or at least own up to today, I would have the great honor as Dean of this very special law school of hosting my long-term, you notice I didn't say old, friend as Solicitor General to give today's commencement address. Please join me in welcoming General Verrilli to the podium.
Thank you, Gail, for that gracious introduction. I must say, had I known in advance that I was going to have to follow such an extraordinary address as the one you just heard from Mr. Everett, I might have politely declined on the grounds that I was too busy. You're very fortunate to have someone like that among you, and it speaks so much about the nature of this class and this law school. President Mason, Dean Agrawal, distinguished faculty, alumni, proud parents and family members, and most importantly, members of the graduating class of 2012, thank you so much for inviting me to join in this wonderful celebration of all the achievements that have brought you to this day and all that you will accomplish in the years ahead. Today you graduate from one of the finest law schools in the country under the stewardship of a great dean and an outstanding faculty. You are brilliant and motivated. You have matured during your time here, and you are well trained in the law. After you leave here, you will spread throughout the state and the country, and you will take your place as the latest generation of this school's great tradition of successful leaders, of the profession, of business, and of government. And that is fortunate, because we really need you. You don't need me to tell you that you're entering a world of great challenges and more than a little uncertainty. We have fought our way back from the devastation of the 2008 financial crisis, but the economy still has a ways to go. And the legal profession continues to face its share of economic stress, especially for many of you who will begin your careers with the heavy burden of student loan debt, wrestling with the personal financial challenges you face in these uncertain times may seem like more than enough, and that is a perfectly reasonable position. But I'm here today to say to you that you can do more and to ask you to do more. The most important challenge you will face is not weathering the current economic climate. The nation has summoned the will to overcome economic challenges before and is doing so again now. The legal profession will weather the storm, and so will you. There is a greater challenge before you as you enter the profession, one that has been increasingly evident over my decades of law practice, but was, in my judgment, starkly exposed during the 2008 financial crisis. The run-up to that crisis was not the finest hour for our society's leaders in finance, business, and government, and it was not the finest hour for the legal profession. Too many in our profession, by no means all, but too many, have drifted away from the values that define what it means to be a lawyer. Loyalty to the client, to be sure, but also prudence, judgment, stewardship, candor, in short, a sense of public responsibility in everything you do. The point of your law degree is not to give you an economic advantage over your fellow citizens or entree into a life of wealth and power. You will do fine economically. In fact, you will probably do quite well. But being a lawyer is not a job. It is a profession, or if you are lucky, it is a calling. There is, or at least there should be, nobility in our work, taking on and solving other people's problems, being the voice for the voiceless, standing up for the rule of law in everything you do. As a profession, we need to reclaim these core values and restore them to the central place they deserve. That is only going to happen, renewal is only going to happen, if you make it happen from your first day on the job. It starts with a recognition that law is a public profession and that being a lawyer means assuming public responsibilities. Those responsibilities include devoting time to pro bono or community service, starting this year. And I might add, it sounds like you're off to an astounding start, given the numbers that Dean Agrawal identified. But your sense of public responsibility should shape everything you do. It means having the integrity to tell your client no when the law will not permit what your client wants to do, even as you try to help your client find a way to achieve its objectives lawfully. It means being candid with the courts, even as you zealously advocate for your client's interests. It requires a constant appreciation of the public consequences of your actions and those of the clients you advise and represent. And I do hope that for many of you, this sense of public responsibility will lead you into full-fledged public service at some point in your lives, and I hope sooner rather than later. It took me more than 20 years to take that step, but I can attest from my last 3.5 years in government service that it is the most professionally rewarding thing you can do. Whether it's putting the people in jail who need to be there, or defending their liberty with everything you've got. Being a watchdog for consumers, protecting our environment, policing financial shenanigans, or holding elected office. The happiest lawyers I know are the lawyers in public service. And your community, your state, your country need your service and your leadership at this time of historic challenges. We really need you. That is a lot to ask, I know. So I guess it's fair to say that in the finest tradition of hackneyed commencement speaker cliches, I'm urging you to aim high. And I should also note that in doing so, I'm cutting against the grain of the trendy contrarian advice this commencement season from author and journalist Charles Whelan, who is just out with a book called 10 and a Half Things Your Commencement Speaker Won't Tell You. And that book aims to take the air out of most of the cliches graduates hear at this time of year. As I was preparing for today's address, I looked at Whelan's top 10 list, and I will say there was much wisdom in it, but I do not agree, in fact, I emphatically do not agree with one of the items of advice on his list, which is, don't make the world worse. Now, I mean, of course, I agree that you're not actually strive to make the world worse when you leave here. But what I don't endorse is the core of the advice, which I'll quote for you. Whelan says, I know that I'm supposed to tell you to aspire to great things, but I'm going to lower the bar here. Just don't use your prodigious talents to mess things up. Too many smart people are doing that already. Now, of course, the smart people he's talking about include the wizards who dreamt up the exotic financial products that brought our economy to the brink of collapse, and the lawyers who enabled all that wizardry. So Whelan is right to remind us that talent and expertise can be as easily misused as used for good. And I suppose that if you live out your professional lives without misusing your talents to mess things up, society might be marginally better off. But that is not enough. If you set the bar at not messing up, you are not going to do what our profession and our society really need you to do to make a difference. And just as importantly, there's a pretty high likelihood that you're not going to be satisfied. Now, having just implored you to aim high, I'm now going to offer the one piece of career advice in this address, and it may seem to contradict what I just said, but it doesn't actually. The advice is this: do not think of your professional life as a ladder to be climbed. Whatever you aspire to, don't try to plot out a straight line from here to that goal. It is almost certain not to get you there. If you're always asking yourself, what's the next rung on the ladder and how do I take that step up, you are going to miss out on the experiences that actually could make the biggest difference in helping you reach your goals. Even more importantly, you will miss out on the experiences that could reshape or even revolutionize your thinking about what you really want and what really matters. Commit yourself to what you believe to be important. Take risks to do so. Success will follow from your commitments in ways you likely could never have predicted or planned. Success may end up looking different than you had originally imagined, but it will be success on your terms. As I look back on my own career, the single thing I can identify as having had more to do with any other, with me being the lawyer I am today and being in the position I am in today, is something that a person plotting a course to become Solicitor General would not have considered an especially savvy or wise move. And that is taking on pro bono work on behalf of death row inmates, which is obviously something that has been and remains quite controversial. Back in 1984, when Dean Agrawal and I were clerking together on the Supreme Court, the pace of scheduled executions in the states had started to pick up considerably. And a burdensome part of our job back then was reviewing the last-minute stay applications that came in seeking to halt executions. One thing that struck me in reviewing those petitions was the extremely uneven quality of the representation capital defendants received at their trials, and how the difference between being on death row or not being on death row often seemed to come down to the competence of the defense counsel. Based on that experience, I resolved to do something about the problem when I left the court, and so I started taking on pro bono habeas corpus cases for death row inmates almost as soon as I began practicing. I was very fortunate that the law firm that I worked at for more than 20 years, Jenner & Block, strongly supported those efforts. I handled quite a few of those cases over the years. Most of them involved claims of ineffective assistance of counsel. On 5 separate occasions, my representation of death row inmates brought me before the Supreme Court as an oral advocate. So a good deal of the experience that ended up qualifying me to be considered for the position I have now came directly out of my commitment to represent death row inmates. But even more to the point, I learned essential lessons about what it means to be a lawyer. For these clients, I was what stood between them and execution. It was my responsibility, even as a young lawyer, even a couple of years after graduating from law school, to make the judgment calls about what arguments to make and how to make them. It was my responsibility to do the work needed to make sure those judgments were based on the best information. And it was my responsibility to stand up in court, from a county courthouse in Jackson, Georgia, or Gulfport, Mississippi, to the Supreme Court of the United States, and give the best argument I could on their behalf. The sense of commitment and responsibility forged in representing those clients became the norm for all my work. I came to understand what it means for a lawyer to be an advocate for a client. And I came to understand the centrality of the principle that every person deserves vigorous advocacy on his or her behalf. Now, I will say that in working on these cases disabused me of the notion that everyone on death row is some gentle soul misplaced inside a jail. While I forged good relationships with some of my clients, others were, shall we say, more difficult. But the very legitimacy of our adversarial system of justice depends on vigorous advocacy on behalf of criminal defendants. And that legitimacy is most at stake when the defendant faces the most serious consequences. So it was imperative that I give my best for all of these clients, no matter what I thought of them or their actions. And that lesson also infused itself into my work for all of my clients. That kind of commitment is the essence of what it means for a lawyer to represent a client. I became better at everything I did as a lawyer because of the lessons I learned doing those cases, even though that is not a path that I would have taken had I been thinking about the next rung on the ladder. So one more thing. While it's surely right to focus this afternoon on the bright promise the future holds for you, an important milestone like today should not pass without a reminder that life is not always going to be smooth sailing. Adversity will come your way, and the more you put yourself on the line for something you believe in, the more adversity you may face. There will be times when things just break badly for you. You won't always live up to the expectations you have for yourself or that others have for you. It happens to all of us. Nobody, no matter how successful, drives through life hitting every light green. And when it happens, it can be really tough. But what ultimately matters in life is how you respond when diversity hits you. That is when you show what you are made of. And what you are made of is going to be the product of the choices you make along the way. If you have acted with integrity throughout your life, you will respond with integrity when the times are tough. If you have shown courage, you will respond with courage. If you have shown decency and respect to your colleagues, and even more importantly to your adversaries, you will know that you should continue to do so. And you may find surprising sources of support when you do. If you have committed yourself fully to your client's cause, you will know that you have done what you could, and you will know what to do on your next case. And if you have put yourself on the line publicly for something you believe in, you will know that a little adversity is no reason to stop doing the work that makes a difference. So as you leave here, remember that what you do every day as a lawyer matters. Each day's choices shape what you will become. And those choices determine the reserves you will have to draw on when you need them. One of the most important lessons in such times, and this is something I hope you already know, is that in your most difficult moments, you will be sustained by the people who love you, your family and your friends. And that will surely include the friends you have made at this great law school. So take a moment now to look around and reflect on how fortunate you are to have the friends you have made here. Odds are they're going to be the ones who are there for you 10, 20, 30 years from now. But for right now, let's get back to why we're here today, to celebrate and to launch you on your way. Thank you, Iowa College of Law, class of 2012, for the great things I know you are going to do for our profession, our country, and our world. And good luck to you It's been a privilege to be here.
Thank you, General Verrilli. We come now to the most important part of today's program, the conferring of degrees. I invite President Mason to join me as I present the degree candidates. President Mason, on behalf of the faculty of the College of Law, I am proud to present these candidates who have completed all the requirements for the degrees of Juris Doctor and Masters of Law as designated. Members of the class of 2012, please stand and remain standing.
By the authority vested in me by the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, I hereby confer on each of you the degree of Juris Doctor or Masters of Law as qualified and designated. Congratulations, you did it. Graduates, please be seated.
Thank you, President Mason. I am going to now ask the graduates to come forward to be individually introduced by Professor John Mark Stensvag and to receive their doctoral hoods from Professors Emily Hughes and Todd Pettis. You will be led by Professors David and Anderson.
Kathleen Acerny. Manal Saeed Ahmed. Sophia Noshin Akbar. Grant Ian Anderson. Carrie Anderson. Michael Ariely. Catherine Allison Byer. Emily Michelle Balch. Hasti Betamand. Emma Barnum. Leslie Ann Berry. Laura Christine Bartelt. Elizabeth Ann Beadle. Nathaniel Paul Beal. Amy Joanna Byer. Sheila Ann Benson. Jordan Ross Burgess. Catherine Marie Betts. Boyd Burton Black. Christopher James Augustine Blanco. Christine Ann Buckholt. Andrew Bolton. Kelsey Brandley. Marcy Jo Brandt. Maureen Bracco. Eric Brown. Stephanie Sue Brown. Tyler John Buller. Bryce Andrew Carlson. Delilah Catalan. Kayla Casey. Bridget Casey Gucci. Travis Michael Kavanaugh. Jane Chang. Li Chen. Joshua Lloyd Christensen. Alexandria Marie Christian. Mary Kathleen Conroy. Michael Forrest Curtis. Sylvia Dabrowska. Brian Walter Denlinger. Paul Douglas DeArmond. Nicholas Burl Dial. Sophie Marie DeRoba. Thomas William Evans. Van Thomas Everett. Anthony Roy Eves. Michelle K. Fichter. Daniel Patrick Fisher. Brian Patrick Flaherty. Michael Fleming. Erin Elaine Fortner. Amber Fricky. Justin Fromm. Joseph Frondel. Rudolph Clement Gabriel. Victor Charles Gaffney. Lauren Francis Gannon. Erin Michelle Gravy. Joseph Frederick Gravert. Andrew Greenberg. Holly Ann Greider. Lindsay Ann Guerrero. Whitney Lee Hall. Gassan Harb. Carrie Ann Harrington. Timothy Howe. Amy Lynn Hine. Francisco Orlando Enriquez. Amelia Christine Hurst. Anel Hadzik. John Hoffmeyer IV. Matthew Jordan Hulstein. Nathan Jackson. Rachel Ann Jensen. Matthew Johnshoy. Brian Daniel Jones. Lindsay Lucelle Kaufman. Brian Michael Kearns. Jennifer Shayna Klein. Ashley Lynn Cost. Allison Darlene Coons. Catherine K. Lang. Jacqueline Faith Langland. Corey A. Lasker. Laura B. Latham. Nathan Michael League. Ray Lee. Heidi Locke. Colton David Long. Scott Lyon. Kelsey Ann Ward Markward. Brett Richard Marshall. Joel Henry Martin. Nicholas Maxwell. Zeke Robert McCartney. Ryan K. Melcher. Brian Andrew Melhus. David Urquhart Meny. Robert Franklin Miller. Morgan Grace Miranda. Michael Montgomery. Edward Babcox Morris. William Stewart O'Hare. Kevin Joseph O'Neill. Joshua Orweiler. John Russell Palmtag. Ki Kyung Park. Sangji Park. Lucas James Parker. Roshni Dasrath Patel. Samuel Perlmutter. Brett Robert Powers. Aditya Pulikal. Heather Ray Quick. Catherine Mary Quinnert. John William Richmond. Allison Renee Rolfe. Austin Taylor Romstead. Ernest Rose. Catherine Ross. Emily Ruth Roxburgh. Brandon Wade Roop. Katrina Michelle Schaefer. Ashley Laurel Shanejohn. John William Scott. Kyle Vincent Shanahan. Michaela Jo Shotwell. Anastasia Andreevna Slivker. Alexander David Smith. Whitney Smith. Anastasia Snikarenko. Adam David Sohn. Shannon Lee Soul. Kate Solheim. Jessica Dawn Spoden. Nicholas Stevens. Joseph Strong. Marie Sullivan. Gregory Michael Taylor. Eleanor G. Tennyson. Nicole Marie True. Anthony J. Tucci. Brian Richard Tunis. Carly Shea Tweeton. Allison K. Van Natta. Laura Elizabeth Wozni. Christopher Wendell. Mindy Ellen Wheeler. Lee Karen Wickel. Sean Timothy Williams. Jason Pascarell Wiltfang. Krista Marie Winkleblack. Benjamin Joseph Wisnowski. Emily Jean Wisnowski. Michelle Christine Wolf. Taylor Wright. Naveed Zarina. Boya Melissa Jong. Mika Rai. Karen Fasano Thompson. Young Yu Wang. Jenna Wei. Yingshine Chao.
Somebody tells me, there we go, my mic is now on, so that's good. So one more time, please join me in congratulating the class of 2012. Be seated. So before we close, I am charged to add a few words of farewell to the newest alumni of the Iowa College of Law. You now take your places as part of a proud and distinguished legacy. We were founded as a frontier law school from our very beginnings, open to all without regard to gender or race, even before Iowa gained statehood. With statehood came a state motto, no obscure Latin for Iowa. Our founders wanted everyone to understand the cornerstone of this new state. And so they declared the state's motto: our liberties we prize, and our rights we will maintain. And how are these liberties and rights to be maintained? The late President John F. Kennedy might have said it best. He said, certain other societies respect the rule of force. We respect the rule of law. As lawyers, you will be guardians of the rule of law. You will be charged to protect the liberties and the rights we prize and to pursue justice in all you do. The orderly transition of public power and the peaceful resolution of private disputes will be entrusted to you. This is a great privilege, as well as a heavy responsibility. Today, I entrust it to you. As you leave the College of Law to take up this path, as your dean, I am obligated to remind you that you were prepared for this noble calling, the practice of a learned art in the public interest in a public law school. Farmers in their fields, the cashiers at your local Hy-Vee, the people of Iowa contributed to the cost of your legal education. Today, I ask you to think seriously about how you will pay it forward. The need is great, and your options are many. I know you, so I know you will choose well as you fulfill this moral obligation to those who have helped you along the way to this great day. So on behalf of your teachers, our staff, and the rising 3Ls who long to sit where you sit right now, I offer our great affection, our admiration, and our congratulations. This 2012 exercise is now adjourned. After the recessional, I invite all of you to join us for a reception at the Boyd Law Building. Thank you very much for being with us to celebrate this day.